Hello, another edition of Legislative Update. A lot has happened, and so we'll try to get as much done as we can. So I brought in help tonight. So let me introduce Erica Layon, from a representative from Dover. And Erica, you want to?
Thank you very much, Ralph. Ralph and I serve on House Education together. I'm a first-term representative from Derry. I have a degree in economics from MIT. I worked on Wall Street for a while and then became a stay-at-home mom and decided to run for office. And this is the most fun I've had in a while, so I'm very glad to be part of the legislature.
And she, like me, we're not one of a lot of problems in the committees. They're people that are from education, the ex-teachers, ex-superintendents, all that. So we're outsiders.
Yes.
So which is good. We're looking at the student's perspective rather than the administration's perspective. So anyways, we're going to start with first one of my bills, HB 71, which was signed by the governor, and that was my no means no bill. Remember when I brought that up? And I remember a couple of years ago, we had a teacher's contract, collective bargaining agreement that failed, and the school board and the teacher took it to court. And the judge ruled, yeah, you can have a special meeting. Can't do that anymore. The problem we thought we fixed that law in '96. Not me, but the problem with the law said the judge shall consider, okay, and if it was at a previous district meeting, et cetera, et cetera. So now you can't consider it. You can't do it. So that was a good one. And that's been signed by the governor. So, for example, if I go back here and look, let me go back one. See, chapter law, signed by the governor. HB 77, that in turn state reps, when state reps filed, the town clerks emailed the Secretary of State right away. HB 135, that was, remember my bill on the PFOA, pollution. The Senate still has it. They're still playing with it. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. So anyway, but let's move on. And what we have here.
So I actually have a bill that's on its way
Oh,
to
right.
the governor as well. It hasn't been enrolled
285,
yet.
right.
Yes, 285. When I was running, I found a way to clean up the checklist just for my own purposes and realized if I knew how to make the voter checklist more accurate, I might as well see if I can make that into law. And it looks like that's going to happen, which is pretty fantastic to see.
Right. Yeah, one of the problems it takes forever to update. For example, on my street alone, with there are only 10 houses, there are at least 6 people that are still on the rolls. Well, not now because they just did a purge, after people haven't voted for 4 times, they purge and send you a postcard. But these people, the houses were sold, and yet they were still on the rolls. So
we have it to check when a house is sold and also change of address. We had 6,000 out of our 24,000 in Derry that had to get a letter, and 3,000 of them had changed addresses so long ago that the post office still didn't have the forwarding information.
right.
So that would have saved our supervisors a lot of work.
Yeah, the thing was years ago, because I remember this, when you moved, you filled out a postcard that you sent to your previous town clerk or whatever to remove you from that role. Nobody's doing that anymore because I guess money, you got to pay for postage. But even when my granddaughter moved to Chicago, I went to the town clerk and said, well, she's got to come in and show us her Illinois driver's license. Wait a minute. It's got to, utterly ridiculous. But she's off the roll now, but only because she hasn't been here for 4 years or more than 6 years. So that's hopefully will cut down on the voter lists. Okay, last Thursday we had a big meeting, big session. It was on the budget was the big thing, and it had a lot of stuff in the budget which we're going to try to cover today. The governor signed that yesterday. And just some quick things here. Interest in dividends tax, we'll eliminate that over 5 years. Meal and rental, we cut the meals and rooms tax to 8.5% instead of 9%. business enterprise tax cut, business profits tax cut, and also moved 30,000 small businesses now exempt from tax filings. Just lowered the threshold of how much businesses have to make before they have to file. So that's a good thing. So small businesses will definitely work out. Excuse me. Come on.
And there's also, I guess we're gonna talk about that tax relief later.
Right, yeah, we're
Yes.
gonna get that.
Oh, yes.
Let me.
All sorts of good things. This is how big the budget is. So I printed it out so I could take a look.
Mm.
There you go.
Yes, yeah. Mm. The problem with my coughing is I was on a motorcycle all week and get some. Okay, also local property tax relief, $100 million of direct property tax relief comes off the SWEP. And how it's going to work is you still pay the local property, school property taxes and the SWEP property tax. It never leaves the town, but the $100 million were put in from the general fund, so the DRA will figure how much Litchfield will get, or Derry gets out of that $100 million. $50 million increase in meals and rooms tax to cities and towns. $30 million in new school building age. And flexibility for federal ARP funds. We don't know what those are and what the guidelines are for them yet. I mean, we're working on that with the county too. Okay. Where was that? The Merrimack tolls were removed. The Sununu Youth Service Center was removed. Veteran services were restored. There was hundreds of vacant positions in the budget that were removed. If they're vacant, why? Yeah. Okay. The paid family leave, that's a big contention, but that was put 2 years down the road, and I think I was going to get rid of it. But anyway, other stuff. School choice, education freedom account, protection against critical race theory, late-term abortion ban, which we'll cover in state-hide amendment audit, protection from federal election takeover, protection from Biden administration firearms overreach, and vaccine passports. We're also gotten rid of banning them. So, Erica, you want to cover education freedom accounts and what that means?
Sure. I can definitely talk about education freedom accounts. This is an area that I'm very interested in, and I participated in the process quite a bit. So we have different ways to be a student here in New Hampshire, and education freedom accounts are this exciting new way that kids can get money that would otherwise follow them to their school and have that follow them to however they best learn. That can go to a private school, that can be participating in a co-op or some other less formal program, sort of like what homeschoolers do, or it could be somebody buying just a bunch of different resources the way that traditional homeschoolers do. This is a new way of doing things because when you have the state money coming in, there is a different set of rules. But it's really quite open. I mean, you have these students that need to take a statewide assessment test at the end of the year, and they're going to be able to apply for this if their family makes 300% or less of the federal poverty level. Hearing that, it makes you think that this is going to be just a very low-income thing. But if you're a family of four and your adjusted income is about $80,000, you'd be eligible to do this. I'm just rounding numbers here. Family of five, around 93,000. So while it is limited, there are quite a few families that'll be able to do this. They're working on the process right now with the budget being signed yesterday. I know the Department of Education's already working on it to make sure that students have these opportunities come fall. And this is really exciting too because we have our way to address critical race theory in the schools. But if you don't like what your students are being taught, or if you want to have more of a focus on the basics, reading, writing, math, they're able to find a different alternative that suits them a lot better. So with this, it'll be an average about $4,500 that follows the student. That depends on different categories, but it's pretty exciting.
And don't listen to what you're hearing. Oh, we're taking money from your education, from the schools. No, we're not. The schools get the average daily attendance. How many students go to your school, and that determines. So if the kid's not going to your school, you're not going to get the money anyway. Now, It's not gonna help, I don't think, too many homeschool people, because homeschoolers, a lot of them I've talked to, don't wanna get involved with this. Basically, you're gonna have, public school students, you have your charter school students, and you have your EFA students, and you have homeschool students. The problem with EFA students, there are some rules. They have to take some standardized tests, or those kinds of things to prove they're being taught. And I know a lot of homeschool people don't want anything to do with it. So it's not gonna hurt, not gonna all of a sudden, how many thousands of people on homeschooling, not gonna jump on board. So anyway,
Although we do have a few of the families that can't participate in some of the co-ops just because they have one parent working, they're trying to provide for all of their students, and for some of them, getting themselves into the state system is going to make sense so that they can access those resources. That's why it was really important to keep it available to homeschoolers, but keep it distinct, because it might look like homeschooling or it might look like private school, but it's actually technically something different. So that's why nerds like me get involved in things like that.
okay, the next thing we have is, it was signed yesterday, is the Fetal Life Protection Act. Basically, the 24-week ban on abortions. So after, it's a 24-week except in the medical emergencies as specifically defined in paragraph 3, no healthcare provider shall knowingly perform, induce, or attempt to perform an abortion upon a pregnant woman when the fetus has been determined to be at least 24 weeks. This is not new. It's new in New Hampshire, but Massachusetts has this, and a lot of so-called liberal states have had this. So this is no, it's, and it goes, and these have been taken through courts in the past, and it's been found legal. So we're not doing away with choice or anything except for 24 weeks. It's a viable baby.
That's the age when you're a lot more likely that they will try and save the baby if you want the baby and you deliver early. And, people argue that you're making a woman have this baby that they don't want, but once you're already 6 months along, you passed up a lot of those opportunities.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing we have is what's in the budget. It's called Prohibition on Teacher Discrimination. And just read a section of it. And this is going to affect, and parents should really listen to this and whatnot, that one's age, sex, gender identical, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, marital status, familial status, mental or physical disability, religion or national origin is inherently superior to people. You can't teach that. And the reverse, you cannot teach that if somebody, based on their race or whatnot, is not inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, which is being done in schools, and even it was on the Litchfield School District website, which was taken down, on how this is being taught. So that's against the law now, and here to make it really clear. However, nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit discussing as part of a larger course of academic instruction the historical existence of ideas and subjects identified. Now, you can do history. And one of the things with part of the CRT stuff was that they were saying that the Declaration of Independence was a racist document. Martin Luther King praised that document. So we don't know where these Marxist ideas are coming from. But here's the thing. Violation of this section by an educator shall be considered a violation of the Educator Code of Conduct that justifies disciplinary sanction by the State Board of Education, which means the teacher, if they teach this stuff, can lose their credentials. So we just wanted to make that really clear that was done.
That's an interesting one too. I thought that the much stronger language was really important. But it's amazing how something as simple as saying that you can't say that somebody's superior because of their race or other characteristic is such a contentious issue. And the fact that this is happening, and there are people that are going to be able to take this and protect our kids just with this language that seems so simple.
Right.
It's quite amazing.
Yeah, there's no problem with teaching. Yes, there was. We had slavery in this country. You go back in history, and just about every race, nationality, or whatever had slavery. Even in this country, pre-Columbian times, the Mayans, Aztecs, Incas all enslaved each other type thing. It's nothing new. Every race has done it, and it's still being done in some countries, like in Africa, for example. If you're the wrong religion, you're going to get kidnapped. I mean, that's been going on. So it's nothing new, but we need to do the real history. Yes, there was racism, and we got rid of it, and fine. Yes, it was a black person was only counted as 3/5 of a person. That's fact. That can be taught. But then, just because you're white doesn't mean you're racist. Oh, and historically, by the way, there were black slave owners. In Louisiana, there were black plantations owned by blacks that had, and so anyway.
And I hope that the 3/5 of a person, they can go back to teaching that wasn't to dehumanize the slaves. And it wasn't just for slaves, it was for Indians and other people. It was because there was going to be more influence in the federal government from slave-owning states if they counted everybody as one person. So this actually shifted the balance of power to the people that wanted to do away with slavery.
Yeah.
It was to recognize the inherent humanity and move towards fixing that, because America was leading the charge already then. We still were flawed, but everybody has been flawed, and we're just
Right.
trying to become better and better, and we
Right.
need to acknowledge that we're trying to be
so
better.
the big thing that everybody was against was saying that because you're white, and that was the problem. We're not, just because you're white, you're not inherently racist. And there was a Chinese immigrant, I can't think of her name, that made the rally about a month or so ago about doing away with this. And she equated it to the Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, which she was in. So, and like, look at what happened like during the World War II, what the Japanese did to the Chinese. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, they were making the Chinese slaves, or any other country they went to. So it's not just whites. Every race has been racist. So just saying whites is ridiculous.
And it is an issue today in a town council meeting in Derry. When people were talking, they said that somebody was bigoted because he was a white male. Just the fact that he was a white
Right.
male meant that he was bigoted. So if we can start teaching our kids a little bit better, that'll help our society.
Yeah, and this is just a section I took out of the law was just for schools, but it also goes to any public department or State Department, that kind of thing. They can't do this, which let's make some sense. Okay, so let me give that up to date, and now that's law. Okay, the meals and room tax reduction, which we sort of covered, 8.5%. And there's the thing in the bill on how much that is, but
And more of that's also going back to the towns. So
Right.
that's
Oh, yeah.
helping with property tax relief. So not only are they reducing it so we're paying less, they're also sending more to the towns, which is fantastic.
right. Oh, and the abortion thing. Well, let me. One last thing on that is there is not a part of that, but money going to Planned Parenthood. There will be an audit of Planned Parenthood that if any of that money for going to Planned Parenthood, the same as in the federal Hyde Amendment, we put it in the state law that it can't be used for abortion. If it is, they'll lose their money. So just want to also.
And that's just keeping them honest to what they've been saying for all these years. They've been saying that taxpayer money isn't paying for them. So if that's the case, opening the books and making it clear shouldn't put their funding at risk,
Right.
if they've been honest about that.
Also, in the laws, the protection. Now, Biden has been saying he's going to do executive orders for guns and take over and all those kinds of things. Well, in the law, it now says.
Actually, we ended up tabling that one.
Did we table?
We did table that one.
154 we tabled.
No, 154 we tabled. That's where the language was.
No, there was another one too.
There was?
I think so.
Oh, yes, there are some other good protections. I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There was one that would have been so amazing, but the language got a little bit tricky, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to compromise on any of our rights.
Yeah. Basically, it would say, or I don't know if it did, but that the state police, any state, local, or police, county sheriff cannot help the federal government do anything against the Second Amendment. Okay. Okay. Also coming up for students, gifted students. What bill was that? Remember? 157, 158. Anyway, the bill, it hasn't been signed yet, but it will be. It passed to go with a thing for every school will fill out a form on what they're doing for gifted students. Now there was some contention on this because for some people do not like the term, don't want people being smarter than anybody else, basically. Everybody should be equal. Nobody can be smarter than anybody else. So the thing is, we just said, so the Senate added to it that to be a form that, so what are you doing in your school for gifted students? Like, I know some that was in our school, they were going down to the elementary school and helping teach kids that were gifted. We all know there are gifted students that can do math in their head like that. Students that can play music, have perfect tone.
Perfect pitch.
Perfect pitch. They're gifted. Students that do great artwork, they're gifted. So, and what are schools going to do to help those students further and not try to hold them down?
And it was crazy. One of the big arguments was how gifted students need to be challenged. But one of the biggest problems for gifted students today is a lot of teachers aren't giving them more challenging assignments until they're able to sit quietly in the seat and not be destructive. But being bored in school is one of the reasons that leads to behavior problems. And you can't develop grit and you can't develop the ability to really go after a subject matter and really learn something unless you're challenged.
Right.
So we hope that we're going to be able to turn the tide with this one.
Yeah, it's amazing what they come up with for reasons. It's like, for example, my granddaughter was valedictorian when she graduated from Campbell. And the thing is, they have these wall hangings at the school with all the different awards, but they don't have a single one on all the years that they're of any valedictorian or salutatorian, because they don't want everybody to know they have smart people in school. So it's ridiculous. They should be celebrated, not beat down because to make somebody else look bad. Hey, I wasn't valedictorian. I just pushed my way through. I was doing as little as I could, in school, but I didn't feel bad. I praised somebody that was really smart. Anyway, also, there's going to be some changes to what adequate education does.
Yes. What's that?
You
I can do that. Hold on one moment. Let me just pull up the language there. So with this, it was just defining, because in our state law and after some court cases, we need to pay for what's defined as an adequate education in the state. And some of the wasn't really focused on being able to look at all these subjects together and come to a good conclusion and apply critical thinking to it. So we've added knowledge and skill in the mathematics and science. And with that, there had been some push to have climate change recognition. But what we need to do is understand our environment so that we can truly understand the environment around us and all of the impacts on it. So we've added the language, including environmental sciences that investigate the complex interaction of physical, chemical, and biological processes that take place on Earth. And to understand and appreciate the world and the engineering, socioeconomic, and geopolitical challenges around them. People fight over limited resources. That's the history of mankind. And understanding those resources and how that's led to shape history is actually a really important issue. They've also added outdoor recreation into the wellness section, which is important, especially in a state like New Hampshire when we have so many amazing ways to enjoy the outdoors. And this is to be able to learn, work, communicate, and participate effectively in a changing society and environment.
Civics.
And yes, civics as well is in there. We have a civics bill, so students will have to pass the civics test before graduating high school. We had testimony from quite a few people whose fourth graders, after doing the fourth grade credit, were able to pass the test. So that stays with you all the way through high school, which is nice.
Right.
And there's just a focus on rigorous academic study and applied learning, because it isn't just a matter of being able to spit out a couple answers. It's being able to really look at the world around you and understand it.
Yeah,
And-
because what's happened in the past, you've seen these people doing surveys on the street, man on the street, asking people, even college kids, what are the 3 levels of government? They don't know. Who's your senator? I don't know. I mean, come on, these are things that I knew when I was in high school, I hopefully know now, but I mean, but because it was taught. I mean, also it's going, we move social studies, it's now history, geography, and economics.
Civics, and government.
Right.
And there's another one that's a exciting one to me. We added personal financial literacy, and that's a huge deal.
Yeah, because a good one, like I mentioned my granddaughter before, when she was in college, the first year in college, she applied to the Red Cross thing to take lifeguard training because she had a summer job. And when she got back out, she said, "Hey, I didn't get anything." It was she didn't sign her check because nobody taught her how to do that, and she was valedictorian. So I mean, some things need to be done. Okay.
And also they had computer science and digital literacy as a separate thing. That worked when I was in elementary school with Oregon Trail.
Right. Oh yeah.
Now it's integrated into everything, and we've clarified that logic and rhetoric, being able to think things through and actually express the point of view, are important to be throughout all of the subjects that we're focusing on.
Yeah. Also, I mentioned this because somebody had called me up on it. HB 452 that passed. Religious liberty. In other words, you can't shut down a church if it's, if you, with the pandemic, which is what happened with COVID. I mean, we have liquor stores open, Walmart's open and everything, but we close churches. Sorry, you can't do that. Church is just as essential to a lot of people as, I mean, one of the reps, when I asked him about it, he said, "Yeah, I told my priest that we need to go to the liquor store to have a service." I mean, come on, folks. And he also, just a quickie, we'll finish sooner than I thought, but anyway. I don't know when you've heard about the Exeter, what happened at Exeter High School, not that far from us, where they broke a number of laws, federal and state, doing what they did with at the prom, they had students that weren't vaccinated, had to put a number on their hand, which they had to raise, wait a minute. No, come on, what happened? Nobody knows history? I mean, you don't do that. You don't brand students. And number one, that's a HIPAA violation to start with, but it's also state law because they asked the kids if they were vaccinated. You can't do that. There's a law saying, and it's wait a minute, what is it? It's RSA 188.11 IX-D, and it requires schools to create a policy that will provide that no student shall be required to volunteer for or submit to a non-academic survey, a questionnaire. In other words, and that's what it says. And so some teacher asks the students, that's a survey, you can't do that without the parent's permission. Yes, if they're 18, they can answer, but a lot of those kids were not 18. So, and this was a law that I started some years ago, and it finally became law in 17. So It's an opt-in. In other words, the parents have to give their written permission. The law now requires a written consent of a parent or legal guardian unless a student is an adult. So they need to fix that. The only survey is the CDC one, which I know most kids take that as a joke anyway. But in other words, how many times do you take drugs? And the kids answer that. Yeah.
As many times as they're offered.
I mean, it's
Because it's so intrusive and it's just so over the top that I think kids take it as a joke.
yeah. And also, it's been proven over and over again. There's no such thing as an anonymous survey. I mean, that was done. I think I remember reading a story about in 1996. A student from Kentucky doing his thesis did a thing on using the computers then, which I worked on them then. Took the state survey that they had and figured out every name and address of every student that took that survey. Just by the questions you ask. You can narrow it down. And in a small school, you can even narrow it down faster. So that's one of the reasons why we did that to start with. Because let's keep the academics in school and maybe the kids will learn something. So anyway, you have anything you want to add?
I think it was a great session. It was, I'm sure, different than every other year, but we got a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
And I think it was really good. I think the people of New Hampshire really benefit from all of the work this year.
We saved a lot of money. The whole thing, like a former governor had said, it's not revenue, it's expenses.
Mm-hmm. Actually, one of the nice things is there's a bunch of little things, like in the nursing homes, we're sending money from the state to the counties to help cover a lot of costs. So you'll hear people yelling about education funding, but when you look at the whole budget, there's so much money where the state is making sure that the towns, the cities, the counties aren't on the hook for things that they don't need to be on the hook for.
Right. Also, the ARP, American Relief.
Yeah, the ARPA funds.
ARPA things coming from the federal government. That's got a lot of that going to towns. The problem is, and counties. We just did the county budget. Oh, that's a good point. The Hillsborough County budget is up 5%. So anyway, and that comes out to be about. So right now, I looked at mine, and it'll come out to be like $7.50 or $15 for the year. It'll increase your county taxes. So, but the thing is too, the county. One of the things. A lot of money is going to the county from this ARP fund, but we still don't have, we couldn't budget any of it because it can't be used for a normal expense. It's got to be something to supplant or add to. Infrastructure, that thing, if you need a new building or something. But
And we were talking about the property tax. It looks like for me, it's not going to happen this year with that $100 million in property tax coming off of the swept. That's the one that you see in there as education tax.
Right.
But for us, it's going to be a difference of $200 next year when that comes off.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we don't.
have lots
That's
of different
kind of hard.
ways.
How do you know that? Well, you're the numbers person.
Yes.
That the $100 million going to the state.
It's about a quarter of what you do because we raise $365 million a year with that, and 100's off. So round numbers, it's about a quarter
'cause
off.
Derry, you're the third largest school district in the state. Right?
We're giant.
Well, Pinkerton, but you have people from other towns going into. So we don't know what the DRA will figure that out. They have computers and whatnot. So anyway, we're now on the break. I don't know. Maybe we'll do another show if I look through and see what else has been signed and whatnot. Maybe one coming up on all the bills that were signed, or maybe we see if we got any vetoes. But what happened to the veto vote? Remember what bill it was?
We voted no. I think that means we didn't override the veto.
Right. Yeah. Didn't think it was going to happen anyway.
Okay.
But anyway. There's one bill of Governor vetoed, something to do with the salt marshes in Portsmouth in that area, boating and stuff, and
It was to keep people only having to use non-powered boats getting back and forth when they were moored in the harbor.
Yeah.
So it just made more sense to go ahead and keep this veto.
Yeah. So anyway, but with that, so thank you, Erica, for helping. I would have been coughing more through it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Okay, maybe we'll do it again sometime.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Thank
so with that, I think we didn't go too far over. So, good day.